This is the Content Marketing Podcast, episode number 199, How Data-Driven is Your Content Marketing? Hello and welcome to the Content Marketing Podcast. This is the show where we help you grow your tribe and your bottom line through insanely good content. I'm your host, Rachel Parker of Resonance Content Marketing, and today is November 3rd, 2016. Hello, or as we say in Texas, howdy, and thank you for joining us for today's episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. Just a reminder, this podcast is available on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and now also Google Play Music. So if you like what you hear, please feel free to click on over and subscribe. Also, if you want to learn more about content marketing, whether you are new to the gig or a pro looking to brush up your skills and get current, I invite you to grab a copy of my new book, The Content Marketing Coach, Everything You Need to Get in the Game and Win. It's now available on Amazon in book and Kindle format. For more information and to download a free chapter, visit contentmarketingcoachbook.com. Okay, I want to give a shout out to my new friend Chris in Australia. He recently discovered the Content Marketing Podcast and recently contacted me to see if we had any content specific to digital marketing for real estate agencies. And it's so funny, that has been that industry specific topic has been on my mind for quite a while. And now that it has been requested, Chris, I will definitely get on creating some content for our brethren in the real estate industry. Great suggestion. Thank you so much. Also, what I want to do today is I want to issue a challenge. Now, you've heard me talk about Snapchat on this podcast many times before, and I will continue to do so because it continues to gain momentum. And I've mentioned that I'm kind of behind the curve myself. I'm just getting to know how it works and, getting used to it. So I created a challenge for myself, and I'm going to share that with you. My challenge, and I invite you to join me, is every day for the rest of November, every single day, go to the Snapchat app and do something, whether it's follow someone or post an image or post a video or respond to someone's content that they've created on Snapchat. And the reason I challenge myself to do this is that I'm kind of on and off. I'll be really into Snapchat for a couple of days and then I'll get distracted by something else. But it really is becoming a force to be reckoned with. And I know I need more practice and just to work it into my brain to become an active part of the Snapchat community. So if you want to learn more about Snapchat, the best way to do that is just to get into it. And then if you need help, there is plenty of content out there to help you out. So my challenge for myself, join me if you feel so inclined, is to get on Snapchat every day for the rest of November and to take some actions. So that's pretty quick. That's something we can do in a couple of minutes, guys, right? Not seriously time consuming, and we are investing in our professional development as content marketers. Let's put it that way. Okay. Oh my gosh, this is episode number 199. That means next episode is number 200. Now, I was thinking about planning something elaborate and I got busy with other stuff. So we will probably do something special for episode number 200 next week. So be sure to tune in for that. Okay. In last week's episode, we talked about how to give your content heart with employee storytelling. So last month we were talking about internal content marketing, and, last week we talked about how employee storytelling really adds flesh and blood to your content. So if you happen to miss that episode, I invite you to check it out on iTunes or our various other venues or via the RSS feed. This week, we're starting a new month, and we are talking about data, specifically about answering the question of whether your content marketing is data-driven. And then we're going to look at the 4 types of content marketing analytics that can help guide our decision-making. But first, it's time to check in with our news feed for this week's rundown of news you can use. Well, this week's newsfeed starts off with on a sad note. Yes, Twitter has announced that it is shutting down Vine. And if you're not familiar with Vine, it was Twitter's golden child for a while. They bought it 4 years ago for a large amount of money. Don't remember exactly what. And it was the 6-second looping video app. And it really did create quite a stir in its time, because if you remember 4 years ago, video was still... we had YouTube, and that was pretty much it. That was before all these video possibilities came along, and it was really revolutionary in its day. So you would record a 6-second video, and it would play within your Vine feed and within your Twitter feed, and it would loop. It would automatically loop. So, kind of like we're seeing on Facebook today, right? But, it's not surprising. Vine eventually became overshadowed by apps like Snapchat, and also by the live video movement with like Periscope and Facebook Live. And now even Twitter allows direct video uploads. You can upload direct to Twitter without having to go through a third-party app. So, yeah, Vine, rest in peace. I know my buddy Frank Dana was very upset because he built his career on Vine. But, rest in peace, Vine. We'll miss you, and it's the price of progress. Now, for the time being, the website and the apps will remain online. It's not shutting down immediately, and users will have the chance to download their Vine videos ahead of its official closure. And if you go to Google and Google Vine, you will see a ton of nostalgic blog posts talking about the best Vine videos of all time. So kind of fun to look through those. Okay, speaking of video, YouTube has rolled out a new feature. This is something I've been waiting for a long time. So someone watches your video, and at the end of the video, all they get is this smattering of videos that might interest you, right? These might be videos from the same channel, might be from a competitor, might be from a media force, and we as content creators had no control over that. Well, YouTube is giving us some more control over that end of video experience by rolling out end screens. End screens is a new feature that allows you to close your video with some thumbnail images that will allow you to you can point viewers to other videos, playlist or channel on YouTube. You can call for subscriptions to your channel, or you can even promote your website, your merchandise, or your crowdfunding campaigns. To learn more about this feature, you can go to YouTube Help and just look for what do they call it again? End screens. And then, of course, I will provide the direct link in the blog post for this episode at resonancecontent.com. Okay, Facebook is getting into the education business, believe it or not. Facebook has launched its first ever online training course for journalists. And this was an interesting move. I know a lot of journalists use Facebook to keep up with what's going on and also to publish their own content. Well, Facebook is announcing these courses, and they say they were, and I'm quoting here, inspired by conversations with editors and journalists across the globe who asked for a single destination where they can learn about Facebook products, tools, and services for use in their work, unquote. So if you are a journalist, or if you just like to check it out, I'm going to give you the URL. It's a bit lengthy. It's facebook.com/facebookmedia, all one word, /journalists. And of course, as always, I will provide that link in the blog post for this episode. Okay, our content hit of the week. Oh, I love this post. It's called How to Use Humor to Power Up Your Content Marketing by the always wonderful Neil Patel over at the Quick Sprout blog. Now, if you've been hanging out with me for a while, you may have noticed that I love me some humor. Okay, I love sharing a good laugh. And if you've read my book, you definitely know that I love me some humor. And this is something that a lot of companies miss. They miss opportunities to weave in humor into their content, especially on the B2B side. The B2B, a lot of B2B marketers, they just feel, oh, we're B2B. We need to be simple, straightforward. We can't mess around with all that goofy stuff. And they're really missing out on opportunities to connect with people, because humor is something that is everybody loves a good joke. I mean, everybody loves to laugh. Everybody loves something funny, especially something that is kind of self-referential to your industry or to certain aspects of business life. And so what Neil did is he came across some Nielsen research on how audiences respond to humor. And sure enough, the European and North American audiences respond favorably to humor at 51% and 50% respectively. So 51% on the European side, 50% on the American side. And then he goes into reasons why humor is so effective and offers some sage advice for incorporating it into your content. It is an excellent post, and I will provide the link in the blog post for this episode. Okay, that's it for this week's update. If you stumble across something you think might be of interest to your fellow content marketers, please tweet it to me at @RachelParker so that we can share. Now it's time for this week's Spotlight segment. How data-driven is your content? Last week, I had the pleasure of attending a brand new event. I went to the inaugural DataCon conference here in Houston, and this was a conference all about data and analytics, and no, not marketing analytics across the board. So I spent the day with some serious data nerds talking all analytics all day long. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it. It was such a, it was just a fascinating day from beginning to end. They had experts from healthcare, there was someone from MD Anderson there, sports. They had someone from the Houston Rockets came to speak to us, and we even had a NASA person. And I want to say his title is like Director of Knowledge Management at NASA. How freaking smart do you have to be the knowledge management director at NASA? But great guy. And they all had really fascinating presentations on both the present and the future of data, of analytics. And one of my favorite takeaways was an assertion by George Dana. He is the author of the book Profit from Science, and he's also a consultant here in Houston. And he said, and I quote here, 5 years from now, we won't be talking about data science, unquote. And if you think about it, it's really true. Data and analytics are there. Excuse me. It's at our fingertips. We have better, more efficient tools than we've ever had before for collecting it and presenting it and helping us analyze it. And it's becoming an integral part of job descriptions across organizations, and also in organizations across industries. In fact, the gentleman from MD Anderson was talking about excuse me, so sorry about that. Should have brought my water with me. The gentleman from MD Anderson was talking about how they use data to solve roadblocks in employee communications. And they created these beautiful graph charts that showed the flow of information from the source to department influencers and how it got from one person to another. Fascinating stuff. And it really highlights how data is becoming it's becoming part of almost every job function. So we didn't talk a whole lot about marketing, believe it or not, and we really didn't have to, because everything that was said about analytics in these different applications, I can appreciate how it applies to the content marketers world. So where are we now? Where are content marketers with respect to using data? We are all over the map as a group. Some folks are just really on the cutting edge. They are gathering their data. They're using it to their advantage. They're using it to make great decisions, and they are closing the loop going forward. Some of us are just getting started. They are just kind of learning about, for one thing, that data is not scary, that it's very manageable and very doable. And then some of us haven't even gotten out of the gate yet. So for this month, the month of November, we're going to delve into the world of content marketing analytics. Now, I need this as much as you do, folks, because I've always been a believer in data. Resonance has always delivered analytics for our clients, but it's so important to keep up with the times and to learn about ways that we could be doing more or doing what we already do, but better and more efficiently. So to start things off, I was thinking, okay, how do you kick off a conversation about analytics without getting into too much detail right off the bat? So to start things off, I want to borrow some insights from my friend Jay Bear. And Jay Bear, he's been a guest on this podcast. He added a testimonial for my book, good friend of the show. And some time ago, he published an ebook that talks about the 4 types of content marketing and content marketing metrics. And I believe it's every bit as relevant, if not more relevant today than it was a couple of years ago when he published it. And by the way, if you want to look at that source, at that ebook, I will definitely provide a link to the original source to Jay's ebook in the blog post for this episode. I would give you the URL, but it is quite long. It's out on SlideShare. So if you go to SlideShare and just search Jay Bear Content Marketing Metrics, you will probably find it. But he highlights the 4 types of metrics that help content marketers understand how content affects our business. And so when we go to the CMO or maybe even the CEO, we can bring those metrics with us and have that conversation about the value of content marketing. So the first type of metric that he talks about is the consumption metric. And this is just what it sounds like. It's the number of people who viewed or listened to or downloaded your content, whether that's listening to a podcast, reading a blog post, downloading an ebook, checking out a video. This measures the people who took in your content. And this helps us to work toward the goals of, number 1, brand awareness, just kind of getting the word out there about who we are and what we do, and also website traffic. So that content is very capable of driving traffic to our websites, whether it's a blog post that takes them directly to the website, or maybe watching a YouTube video that has a call to action that leads them to your website. So some examples of some of the more prominent consumption metrics would be things like page views, which of course you can see in Google Analytics, number of video views, which you can see in YouTube Insights, document views. So if you're using, for example, SlideShare or Scribd to put out presentations and other longer form content, you can look at those document views. We also want to look at downloads. So if you are offering an ebook, a white paper, a checklist, some other resource, you want to check and see how many downloads you're getting. And you can do that via your CRM or via Google Analytics. And another thing we want to look at is social chatter. So who's talking about you and what are they saying about you on social media? So if we want to look at apps like Mention.net, or if you are really hardcore, you can look into Radian 6. It's a tremendous asset and it's got the price tag to match. So social chatter is also another important consumption metric that we want to look at. And consumption metrics, a lot of content marketers start there and end there. They're looking at, the number of page views, the number of video views. And that's great. That's why Jay includes it in his list. We need to know that stuff. But that's just the bottom level. We need to know a lot more about how that content is performing if we're going to make a business case for content marketing. So the next category, the first was consumption metrics. The second category is sharing metrics. And this is answering the question, quoting from Jay here, answering the question, how resonant is that content? Man, I love that word resonant, don't you? How resonant is this content and how often is it shared with others? So this is looking at people who are not only consuming the content, either watching or listening to or downloading, but people who are sharing it. And content sharing impacts the goals of, again, brand awareness and also engagement. So it's a deeper level than simply taking in, watching that video or reading that blog post. So sharing metrics can include likes, shares, retweets, and repins. And for that, we're going to look at our onboard social analytics like our Facebook Insights or LinkedIn Insights, things like that. And also Google Analytics will show us where traffic comes from with respect to those those social channels. We also want to look at email forwards. Let's not forget about email, okay? I know it's considered old school by many people, but we still need to consider it. And people still do forward emails. They'll get a great newsletter or a great insight via email, and they will forward it. And your email provider will provide those metrics around email forwards. And then we also want to look at inbound links. People who are clicking to your website, how did they get there? Where did those links come from? And for that, we're going to look at our SEO tools. And those are many and diverse, and the list changes about every week. So that is how we want to look at sharing metrics. And again, it's very easy to get that far and then stop. But of course, sharing metrics are very important. We want to see how and where and how often our content is being shared, but we need to go a little bit deeper. Speaking of deeper, the next category is lead generation metrics. So the question we're asking here, again, quoting from Jay, is how often does this content consumption result in a lead? So how often does this result in getting someone on our list? And this, of course, supports our goals of lead generation and also lead management and lead nurturing. Some important metrics in this category are, number one, your form completion and your downloads. So if someone comes to a landing page promoting an ebook, they want to get that ebook, they complete the form and they download the ebook. That's going to be tracked via your CRM, and you can also use URL tracking to get those numbers. We want to look at email subscriptions. Oh, there's email again. Hello, old friend. Yeah, we want to look at email subscriptions because remember, I've said on this podcast many times, your email list is gold because these are people who have handed over their email addresses and said, yes, you can email me, or I will allow you to come into my inbox and talk to me directly. Those email subscriptions, you can pull those up very easily via your email provider or your CRM if you have one like HubSpot or one of the more all-encompassing ones. They will give you that information. Blog subscriptions. Now, as I mentioned, Jay put this together a few years ago, and I don't know if blog subscriptions are all that they used to be. You know what I mean? I do subscribe to a few blogs because there are some that I really, really want to read and I don't want to miss. But I think with social media kind of taking over, it's not as important as it used to be, but it is still important. It's still something we want to look at, and your CRM can help you track that, and it can also help you track your conversion rate, which we also want to look at. So of the people who come to that landing page, how many actually convert? How many download the form? How many complete the form or download the resource? And so it's not just the raw number of visits or number of downloads. It's actually the ratio of how many people actually convert, and your CRM can help you with that as well. Now, the fourth and final category of content marketing metrics, this is where we say, show me the money. This is the sales metrics. And this is where we ask the question, as Jay puts it, did we make any money because of this content? And this is the most challenging to track because content is the impact of content is cumulative. We've talked about the number of touch points before people will say, yes, I want to talk to you about your product or service. And, how do we capture that? How do we aggregate all those touch points and connect the content to the sale? So, with sales metrics, we want to look at online sales, and your e-commerce system can help you track that, and also offline sales. So if you're using a tool like, for example, HubSpot or Marketo, they will track that customer touch point journey. They will say, okay, here is customer John Smith. He opened this and this email. He shared this tweet. He did this. He did that. He left a comment on the blog. And then if John Smith becomes a client, then we can mark him as such and backtrack, look at that customer journey. So again, this is where things get kind of hazy, especially if you are not using one of those more robust tools out there. But we need to think about it. We need to, and if we don't have one of those tools, we can do it old school. The good old, how did you find out about us? Or, or just a conversation. How how did you come to request a consultation? What was the thing that convinced you to give us a call? And if we train our sales folks to ask those questions and get those insights, that can help feed into those sales metrics for our organization. So those are, according to Jay Baer, the 4 basic types of content marketing metrics: consumption metrics, sharing metrics, lead gen metrics, and sales metrics. We're going to be coming back to these categories as we progress in our month-long look at how we can leverage analytics to make more informed decisions about our content. If you have any questions or want to add to the conversation, or if you have a terrific resource that you found that you want to share that has to do with content marketing analytics, I would love to hear from you. Like I said, I'm learning right along with you. And the best way to reach me is through the website, resonancecontent.com, or you can always tweet me at Rach Parker. Now it's time for our content marketing tip of the week. If you are just getting started in your analytics journey, I will tell you what I hear from people and what I experienced myself is that it is so easy to get overwhelmed. There is so much data. There are so many things that can be measured. I mean, good heavens, even going to Google Analytics and looking at all those categories and all those rehashings of your data, that can just set you over the edge, especially if you're artsy-fartsy type like me who just wants to do pretty things. But, we need to do it. And what we need to do, and this is going to save us from that overwhelm, is to focus on actionable data that's actually going to help you make more informed decisions about your content. So when you're evaluating whether to start tracking a particular metric, ask yourself and ask your team, and you might even want to ask your leadership, which decision will this data help us make? How will this help us be more successful in the future? And get very specific. Create a scenario on how it's going to drive real-world decision-making before you add it to your reporting process. And by doing this, you will accomplish 2 things. Number 1, you're going to avoid overwhelm. You're going to avoid spinning your wheels, collecting and analyzing data that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. And number 2, you're going to keep your reports more streamlined, and it's going to be easier for your leadership to assess and to understand. Okay, campers, that is it for me today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. If you like what you've heard, please feel free to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play Music or via our RSS feed. And if you really like what you've heard, please leave us a quick review on iTunes. I would so appreciate that. That's going to help our search mojo, and it's going to help get this podcast in front of more folks who need it. So appreciate your support. Also, if you want to learn more about content marketing, I recommend you pick up a copy of my new book, The Content Marketing Coach, Everything You Need to Get in the Game and Win. It's now available on Amazon in book and Kindle format. And to learn more about the book and to download a free chapter, visit contentmarketingcoachbook.com. As you know, I always like to leave you with a quote, and today's comes from Phil Knight, the founder of Nike. He once said, quote, "Play by the rules, but be ferocious," unquote. Love that word, ferocious, don't you? Again, this is Rachel Parker with Resonance Content Marketing. Thank you again for listening, and we will see you again next week. Take care.